I, 32M, have a sister Thelma, 35F, who has always been extremely competitive with everyone, especially regarding career achievements. Growing up, Thelma was always our parents' golden child because she was a straight-A student who got into an elite college and landed a prestigious job right after graduation. I was more of an average student who took a few years to find my path, and Thelma never let me forget it. Thelma works as a senior manager at one of the top tech companies in our city, and she's built her whole identity around being the successful one in our family. Our parents constantly praise her achievements and use her as an example of what the rest of us should aspire to be. She makes an extremely good salary and lives in an expensive house in the best part of town. Every family gathering turns into a showcase of her latest promotion or bonus. I met my wife Libby, 30F, 3 years ago at a tech conference where we were both speakers. Libby was brilliant, driven, and had the most incredible work ethic I'd ever seen. She came from a very different background than our family. Her parents had immigrated from Vietnam when she was 6 years old, and they worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Libby had to work throughout high school and college to help support her family while still maintaining excellent grades and eventually earning her computer science degree. What really drew me to Libby was how humble she was despite her achievements. She never bragged about her accomplishments or put others down. Instead, she was always trying to mentor younger developers and help others succeed. We connected instantly over our shared love of coding and problem solving, and after dating for 2 years, we got married in a small ceremony last year. Thelma never liked Libby from the beginning. At first, I thought it was just her usual standoffishness with new people, but it became clear that Thelma saw Libby as some kind of threat. Even though Libby was heading the engineering department at her startup and doing innovative work, Thelma would constantly make subtle digs about how Libby was wasting her talent at a smaller company. She would interrupt Libby's work stories with comments like "That's cute, but at a real tech company like mine." Or "You should apply for a junior position at my company if you want to do actual important work." Our parents never said anything about Thelma's behavior, and when I tried to call her out on it, they accused me of being oversensitive and said Thelma was just trying to help Libby advance her career. Libby always handled Thelma's comments with grace, never taking the bait or getting into arguments. She would just smile and change the subject, which seemed to irritate Thelma even more. Things really came to a head 6 months ago when Libby got an incredible job offer from the same company where Thelma works, but in a different department. It was Libby's dream role, better pay, more responsibility, and the chance to lead major projects that could really make a difference in the industry. The position would have her overseeing financial technology integration across multiple divisions, something Libby had specialized in at her startup. When we announced the news at a family dinner, Thelma got very quiet, which was unusual for her since she normally dominated every conversation. Our parents were excited, talking about how the sisters-in-law could have lunched together and how nice it would be to have both their daughters at the same prestigious company. Thelma just pushed her food around her plate and made vague comments about how the hiring standards must be changing. Libby started the job and was doing great. Her team loved her, and she was already making progress on streamlining some of their legacy systems. She would come home excited every day, telling me about the challenges she was tackling and the improvements she was implementing. I had never seen her so happy in her career. Then, just 2 weeks into her new role, Libby was suddenly called into HR and fired on the spot. They claimed they had discovered she had lied on her resume about her previous work experience and projects. Libby was completely blindsided. She had never lied about anything in her life. It made no sense because they had thoroughly vetted her background during the extensive interview process, calling all her references and verifying her previous employment. Libby was devastated. She cried for hours when she got home, saying she didn't understand what had happened. She had copies of all her employment records and project documentation, but HR wouldn't even look at them. They just escorted her out of the building like a criminal. Something didn't add up, so I started investigating. I had a friend who worked in IT at the company who owed me a favor, and I asked him to look into what had happened. What he discovered made my blood boil. Thelma had gone to HR with evidence that Libby had fabricated parts of her work history. She had actually created fake emails and documentation to make it look like Libby had lied about her role and achievements at her previous company. When I confronted Thelma about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She claimed she was protecting the company's reputation and that someone from Libby's background didn't belong at a prestigious firm like theirs. She ranted about how Libby wasn't our kind of people and how she was tired of seeing underqualified diversity hires taking positions they didn't deserve. I had never heard my sister speak so openly about her prejudices before, and it made me sick. I told our parents everything, expecting them to be as horrified as I was. Instead, they suggested we should handle it within the family and not make a big deal about it. They said Thelma was probably just stressed about work and didn't mean any harm. They told Libby she should just apply for other jobs and move on, saying there were plenty of other companies that would be more suitable for someone with her background. Last week, karma caught up with Thelma. Her own boss discovered she had been falsifying reports to make her team's performance look better than it was. She was fired immediately. Now she's frantically calling and texting me because she needs money to pay her mortgage and other bills until she finds a new position. She has apparently already blown through her savings on her lavish lifestyle. Our parents think I should help her since family comes first and she's still your sister. They keep saying that Thelma made a mistake but that she's family, while Libby is just an in-law. They're putting enormous pressure on me to do the right thing and help Thelma keep her house. I refused. I told Thelma she was on her own, Just like she left Libby on her own after deliberately sabotaging her career. Thelma started crying and saying I was being cruel, that she made a mistake and she's really sorry now. But I don't believe she's actually sorry about what she did to Libby, she's just sorry she got caught in her own lies and now needs help. Ida for refusing to help my sister even though she might lose her house. Libby has found a new job now, though not as good as the one she lost, but I'm still angry about what Thelma did. Our parents keep saying I'm being too harsh and need to forgive family, but I don't think I can ever forgive someone who hurt my wife so deliberately just because of their own prejudices and insecurities. Update 1: Things have gotten significantly messier since my last post. After I refused to help Thelma with her financial problems, she decided to launch what I can only describe as a smear campaign against Libby throughout our entire extended family. It's like she's trying to rewrite history to make herself the victim in all of this. Thelma went to our extended family with a completely fabricated version of events. According to her story, Libby was actually the one who had been dishonest and manipulative. She told everyone that Libby had deliberately applied to her department, a lie, it was a completely different division, and had immediately started trying to steal Thelma's projects and take credit for her work. Thelma claimed she had caught Libby accessing confidential files about Thelma's team's projects and had been forced to report this breach of conduct to HR to protect herself and the company. She painted this whole picture of Libby as some kind of corporate spy who had married me just to get closer to Thelma's position in the company. She even went as far as suggesting that Libby had targeted me at that tech conference 3 years ago, knowing I was Thelma's brother. The reality is that Libby didn't even know Thelma existed until after we had been dating for several months. The worst part is that most of our extended family seems to be buying Thelma's lies completely. Our Aunt Linda, who used to love Libby and always praised her cooking, now won't even look at her. Our cousins have been posting vague social media comments about snakes in the family and gold diggers who destroy families. My Uncle Bob, who works in tech recruiting, even called me to warn me about how Libby might be using me to climb the corporate ladder. They've been constantly calling and messaging me, telling me I'm betraying my own blood for an outsider who tried to ruin my sister's career. The fact that Thelma was fired for her own dishonesty somehow doesn't matter to them. They've decided that Libby must have somehow orchestrated that too, as revenge. The mental gymnastics they're doing to make Thelma the victim in all this is honestly astounding. Even my parents, who were at least pretending to be neutral before, are now fully on Thelma's side. My mom actually had the nerve to tell me she should have known Libby was trouble when she first met her. She said things like people from her background often have different values about honesty and other thinly veiled racist comments that made me sick to my stomach. My dad suggested that Libby should go back to her own community where she wouldn't cause problems for our family. The only person who has stood up for Libby is our youngest sister Amy, 28F, and what she revealed has changed everything I thought I knew about Thelma. Amy finally broke down and told us about something that happened 5 years ago. She had applied for a junior position at Thelma's company right after graduating. She had excellent qualifications and had aced all her interviews. The team wanted to hire her, but suddenly her application was rejected due to concerns about her character. Amy discovered that Thelma had gone to HR back then too, with false allegations about Amy having cheated in college. Thelma had apparently created fake emails from Amy's university to support her claims. Amy had been devastated but kept quiet about it because Thelma had threatened to use her connections to blacklist Amy in the industry if she ever told anyone. Amy ended up taking a job in a completely different field because she was so traumatized by the experience. When Amy shared her story in our family group chat, providing screenshots of Thelma's threatening messages from back then, Thelma completely lost control. She showed up at Amy's apartment at 11 p.m., pounding on the door and screaming that Amy was a traitor who was trying to destroy her life. She was threatening to expose all Amy's secrets, though Amy says she has no idea what secrets Thelma was talking about, and saying she would make sure Amy never worked in this city again. Amy was terrified and had to call the police to remove Thelma from the property. She recorded some of Thelma's meltdown on her phone, and it's chilling to hear my sister sound so unhinged. The police gave Thelma a warning about harassment, which just made her more furious. Now our family is completely fractured. Our parents are still defending Thelma, saying Amy must have misunderstood what happened 5 years ago and that she's just jealous of Thelma's success. They're calling Amy and me ungrateful and disloyal for ganging up on our sister when she's already down. They've even started bringing up every mistake Amy and I ever made as kids, trying to paint us as perpetually jealous troublemakers who are just trying to hurt poor, successful Thelma. I've started gathering all the evidence of Thelma's actions, the fake emails she created about Libby, the threatening messages to Amy, the police report from her meltdown, and statements from colleagues who witnessed her behavior. Libby's new company's legal team has reviewed everything and thinks we have a strong case against both Thelma and her former employer for wrongful termination and defamation. But my parents are now threatening to disown both Amy and me if we destroy your sister's life over a misunderstanding. They're saying that taking legal action would prove we were never really family, and that they'll write us both out of their will if we don't drop everything and help Thelma get back on her feet. Amy is staying with us now because she doesn't feel safe in her own apartment. Libby has been incredibly supportive of her, even though she's dealing with her own trauma from everything that's happened. I'm more certain than ever that we're doing the right thing by standing up to Thelma, but watching my family implode like this is still painful. The whole situation has exposed so many ugly truths about my family that I guess I always knew were there but never wanted to face. I always thought Thelma's competitiveness and need to be the best was just ambition, but now I can see it's something much darker and more destructive. Update 2: Everything we thought we knew about Thelma's actions has been turned completely upside down. Last week, one of Thelma's former colleagues, let's call her Rachel, reached out to Libby through LinkedIn. Rachel had been Thelma's assistant manager for the past 2 years, and what she revealed shocked all of us. According to Rachel, Thelma's sabotage of Libby wasn't just about professional jealousy or prejudice, though that was definitely part of it. The real reason was far more sinister. Thelma had been desperately trying to hide her own fraudulent activities at the company, and Libby's new role would have given her direct access to financial reports and system logs that could have exposed Thelma's years of cooking the books. Rachel provided documentation showing that Thelma had been systematically inflating her department's performance numbers since she became senior manager. She had created fake client accounts, fabricated contracts, and even set up shell companies to make it look like her team was bringing in millions in non-existent revenue. She had been embezzling company funds through these fake accounts for years, skimming off percentages of the fraudulent contracts into her own offshore accounts. When Libby joined the company in a position that would have required her to audit and integrate all the financial technology systems, Thelma panicked. Libby's reputation for thoroughness and her background in system integration meant she would have inevitably discovered the irregularities in Thelma's department. That's why Thelma moved so quickly to get rid of her, fabricating the resume fraud story just 2 weeks into Libby's employment. Rachel had actually been gathering evidence of Thelma's fraud for months, but she had been too scared to come forward because of Thelma's connections in the industry. When she saw how Thelma had destroyed Libby's career just to protect herself, Rachel finally decided she had to do something. She had accumulated copies of fraudulent contracts, screenshots of fake client accounts, and records of suspicious money transfers, all pointing directly to Thelma. We turned all this evidence over to the company's internal investigation team and the police. The investigation revealed that Thelma had embezzled over $2.5 million over the past 3 years. The fake performance numbers she reported had also influenced company stock prices, which made her actions securities fraud as well. But the most devastating revelation was about our parents. When the investigators started tracing the money, they discovered that significant amounts had been flowing into accounts controlled by our mom and dad. When confronted with this evidence, they finally admitted that they had known about Thelma's fraudulent activities for the past year. They hadn't just known, they had been actively helping her hide the money. They had used their connections as lawyers to set up offshore accounts and create a paper trail that made the stolen funds look like legitimate investments. They claimed they were just protecting their daughter and that they hadn't technically done anything illegal since Thelma was the one who stole the money. When I confronted them about their role in all this, their response made me sick. They said that Libby should understand their actions since she claims to care so much about family. They actually tried to argue that helping Thelma steal millions of dollars was the same as Libby helping her parents with bills during college. They seemed completely unable to see the difference between working honest jobs to support your family and helping cover up massive fraud. The worst part was their attitude about the whole thing. They weren't sorry about what they'd done, they were just sorry they got caught. My mom actually said that if Libby had been more understanding about her place and left the company quietly when Thelma wanted her to, none of this would have come out. They're still somehow blaming Libby for everything, saying she forced them to take drastic measures by not being flexible about her career. Amy is absolutely devastated by our parents' involvement. She had always thought that Thelma was the only toxic one in the family, and that our parents were just overly indulgent of her. Finding out that they were actively involved in her crimes has shattered Amy's whole perception of our family. She's been having anxiety attacks and can barely sleep. The company is now pursuing criminal charges against Thelma for embezzlement and fraud. They're also investigating several of her close colleagues who might have been involved in the scheme. Our parents haven't been charged yet, but they're under investigation for their role in hiding the stolen money. Thelma has completely disappeared. She emptied her house in the middle of the night and stopped responding to all messages. The police are looking for her, but according to my parents, they have no idea where she might have gone. Given how they've helped her in the past, I don't believe them for a second. Update 3: The final chapter of this saga has brought both justice and heartbreak to our family. Thelma was finally arrested 2 weeks ago trying to cross the Canadian border with false documents. As we suspected, our parents had helped her hide in various locations while she tried to flee the country. She eventually took a plea deal to avoid a longer sentence. She'll serve 2 years in federal prison for embezzlement and securities fraud, plus another 3 years of supervised release. The company's investigation revealed that Thelma's fraud went even deeper than we initially thought. She had been manipulating data and stealing money since her very first promotion to management 6 years ago. She had also been blackmailing several junior employees to help her cover her tracks, threatening to ruin their careers just like she had done to Amy and Libby. Libby's new company has been incredibly supportive through all of this. Once Thelma's crimes became public, her former employer reached out to Libby with a formal apology and an offer to return to her position. They're not only giving her the original job back with a promotion and full back pay, but they've also offered a substantial settlement for wrongful termination. More importantly, they're implementing new policies to prevent HR fraud and bias against employees from immigrant backgrounds. Our parents are facing their own consequences. While they avoided criminal charges by cooperating with investigators, their involvement in Thelma's crimes has become public knowledge in our community. They've been forced to resign from their law firm. The partners didn't want to risk their reputation being tarnished by association. Most of their friends have distanced themselves, and they've lost their standing in all the social circles they once dominated. Instead of showing any remorse, they've doubled down on blaming everyone else. They tried to submit a letter to the judge before Thelma's sentencing, claiming that Libby had somehow manipulated events to frame Thelma out of jealousy. The judge was not impressed, especially since the evidence of Thelma's guilt was overwhelming. They even tried to claim that Amy and I had conspired with Libby to steal Thelma's money and pin it on her, though this desperate attempt obviously went nowhere. Amy has started rebuilding her life. She's moved in with us temporarily while she looks for a new job, away from our parents' influence. The company has offered her a position as well, acknowledging that her rejection 5 years ago was based on Thelma's false allegations. She's finally getting therapy to deal with years of Thelma's manipulation and our parents' toxic behavior. It's amazing to see her slowly regaining her confidence and realizing none of this was her fault. Libby and I have gone completely no contact with my parents and Thelma. We've blocked them everywhere and made it clear through our lawyer that any attempt to contact us will be treated as harassment. We're focusing on building our own family with people who share our values of honesty and mutual support. Several of our cousins who initially believed Thelma's lies have reached out to apologize after seeing all the evidence, and we're cautiously rebuilding relationships with those who seem genuinely remorseful. Some relatives still insist we should have protected Thelma and kept things within the family. My aunt called last week saying that real families stick together no matter what, and that we're terrible people for letting Thelma go to prison. But seeing Thelma's complete lack of remorse, even in court, has only confirmed that we made the right choice. The only thing she apologized for was trusting the wrong people, meaning Libby and Amy, for exposing her crimes. This whole experience has taught us that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. Libby, Amy, and I are creating a new kind of family based on respect, honesty, and real support, not the toxic loyalty and corruption that Thelma and our parents tried to force on us.